I once hired 35 African American fellas and this pencil neck called me a racist at the mall. A Tits Rumping Co. Ltd. And associate letters to the editor, editorial from the editor's desk, where I write and I set the record straight for once so you can find out what's really going on, stupid ass. I was at the Sharper Image at the Woodfield Mall. When this fella I used to work with on the newsroom floor, he had his grandkids with him. Had a colored streak in his hair, either turquoise or possibly cyan. The kids were dressed like Dr. Star Trek but had proper haircuts, so I assume their mother is a Christian, but his son was always lupa. Smoked marijuana heavily in college, though I didn't see any physiological defects on his children. Anyway, cut to Texas Roadhouse, because none of us had eaten since breakfast and those grandkids of his are on some form of medication that they needed to eat. I wanted lunch anyway. I've had a beer by this point, but I took my beta blockers so I wasn't shaky or anything like that. Waiter turned out to be his son, the pothead I was telling you about. He starts going on about the NBA and how they're kneeling during the national anthem. All I'm thinking is, where's my steak? I know this young man is going to start about the race stuff, with the blacks is what I mean. I have all my bags from the mall, I'm hungry, this snowflake is blocking the TV and I'm trying to look around him to catch the score on the game. I did this because I don't want anyone to see the shopping bags and break into my car, and I had placed a substantial bet on the aforementioned game. Out of the blue the waiter calls me a racist. I have no idea where this was coming from, because I hadn't said shit, and last time I looked around the steakhouse I didn't see a single African American. So how could I have been being racist? I generally expect to be called a racist by damn near every person under the age of 50 to 60 that I encounter, but they usually have a reason, such as that I was drinking and used the wrong word or something. I'm currently 103 years of age, and the word has changed 3 times I can think of. It's not like I just went and cussed out an African American fella when he was with his family, and like I already said, there wasn't any black families in the Texas Roadhouse far as I could tell. I let my friend's son flap his gums for approximate 2 more hours, not saying a word, before I say what I had been thinking the whole time, where's my steak? I did chuckle a little, but remember this man just ran up to my table in full uniform and started screaming about baseball and Christopher Columbus. I realize now that the kids may have wanted to see their father, and that's how we ended up at Texas Roadhouse, but that doesn't mean I'm not a man who needs to eat. I want the steak I ordered. Then he tells me we never ordered and the appetizers are still coming? Who the hell orders appetizers before steak? You're gonna get appetized just fine when the steak comes. Maybe this is for people who need their vegan steaks well done, and so by the time the fake meat is ready they really are quite hungry. I don't think the vegans ever really get full, but I also think a charred steak isn't good for one's constitution because the iron is burned up by the heat and soaked up by the butter. That's what the baked potato is for. So I look Lieutenant Colonel Social Justice straight in the eye and tell him, look, I'm here with your family, and you want to start acting hysterical in front of your own children. I take this opportunity to set the record straight with him by explaining this. He doesn't want to hear it. Here is the thing you need to know. I franchise a minor league football team, and thereby employ no less than 30 African American fellas. I didn't say fellas of color, even though I was recently told we're supposed to go back to calling them colored. Of color. It's not colored. I got chewed out by some Austrian teenager at the bakery by Illinois Masonic for using this term, and once again no African Americans were present. Colored was never a bad word, then it became one, then we're just all supposed to go back to using it? Okay. Get the fuck out of here. These guys I employ, They don't go pro hardly because they're too old for it, and it's not good for the temporal lobe to play that much football, and we don't always necessarily have helmets at practice because I grew up playing rugby. You dislodge your skull, you drink it off, and eventually someone gives you an adjustment. In the most serious of cases, of course, we take the guys to the hospital, but that's a fairly infrequent occurrence. But I have these 30 guys who work for me. They're all healthy and they're all happy. I have another team in Madison, but I have my nephew manage that team because he's one of the only of my brother's kids who is a heterosexual. Not married, mind you, but you don't gotta be. I never married, though no less than 4 women have had this idea in their head we was married. In my mind it doesn't count when you slap a tux on a fella under the influence of scopolamine, no father to walk her down. The aisle and the ceremony is officiated by a man wearing the full skin of a Syrian brown bear, and whipping himself with a scourge fashioned from leather. But that's how things are done in Myrtle Beach, and to be fair, I should have known that Colombian woman was only into me for my money. I had also taken several datura leaves in a quit of my own volition, but that's a home remedy my own grandmother used for colic and excessive crying. I myself use it for the psychoactive effects, because it bestows the power of invisibility. I also ordered about $700 worth of licensed Miami Dolphins merchandise, which is bullshit because I was in Carolina and I don't have a debit card. By the time my steak arrived, I had set the record straight with that weirdo who was dressed like Captain Who, but I no longer felt like eating. I bid my good friend farewell and slipped both of his grandkids a $20 bill. They wanted to go back to the mall to buy some video game with it, but I told them to hold onto it for the next time they go to the mall. If they have any money sense, they may intuit that I plan to give them another $20 when we get together around the 4th of July, and then they can get a better video game provided they haven't already spent the money. I hope there is a future for those children, with their father being heavily dosed on antidepressants and also trying to support a family of 4 working at a Texas roadhouse. He probably still tells people I am a racist, but I'm not worried about what the people at the campus anti-war bonfire think of me. I don't hire liberal journalists, and half of them don't realize they are actually neglecting the necessary technical writing courses they will need for journalism by taking Safe Spaces 101 and Intro to LGIA as free electives. I made a similar mistake by taking anthropology courses, but I'm fairly confident my habit of freely consuming the mushrooms that grew in the wooded area near campus may have augmented my judgment in a measurable way. And I still came out okay. Survived the wood chip playgrounds too, by the way. MRIP Tuts, Tits Rump Publishing Inc. Co. Ltd.